Welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Money Matters podcast. On this episode, my guest is Dr. Cory Fawcett, a retired surgeon in Oregon who's written several books for medical professionals in the financial topics. His latest book was The Physician's Guide to Real Estate Investing, and we talked about his approach to real estate on this latest episode. We also talked about net worth numbers and how Dr. Fawcett was actually able to build up quite a significant net worth using real estate, frugality, while not having as high of an income as you would suspect from a private practice surgeon. So it's a really good story, and he's a really good teacher about how to invest, how to have a good mindset, debt aversion. And I really enjoyed talking to Dr. Fawcett. I've met him a couple of times in real life, and he's just an engaging person to be around. So I think you'll really enjoy this podcast. He was on our episode or on our podcast a few years back when we talked to him about eliminating debt in one of his prior books. This episode was actually recorded in late January, but I'm only releasing it now due to I stopped releasing episodes during the COVID crisis, which is still ongoing. And on my YouTube channel, which I'll link to, you'll see the full discussion where we talked about his current lifestyle at the time where he was traveling in an RV. But I cut that out for the podcast. But I want to thank all of you healthcare professionals who are working so hard in taking care of people during this crisis. We all have a role to play, but many of you have really been challenged and are doing amazing work, whether you're in New York, Detroit, Chicago, LA. Here in Arizona, we've had a significant caseload up in the Navajo Nation. And in different parts of the country, it's impacted us differently. But I just want to thank all of the healthcare professionals. I know right now it's kind of a popular thing to show our appreciation, but we really do appreciate the work that physicians, nurses, and some recognized folks in my field, the technologists, the radiologic technologists, CT techs, ultrasound techs, X-ray, MRI, nuclear medicine, and mammography. They're really doing difficult work and sometimes don't get the credit that they deserve. So a shout out to them from your other medical colleagues. Anyway, so we'll get to the podcast. So we're talking about real estate. The one thing I like when Dr. Fawcett explains is it's very clear. He does a really good job in explaining things in a simple manner. And one of the interesting things is, there's a lot of discussion, especially on physician social media, about passively investing in real estate, which is fine. But we talk about Dr. Fawcett's approach there, and he's more of a fan of doing it yourself, and not necessarily fixing the toilets, but hiring your own property manager instead of hiring a syndication to do it. And we talk about that. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I encourage you to check out Dr. Fawcett's website, financialsuccessmd.com, where he has his list of books and blog posts. And once again, Dr. Cory Fawcett. There we go. Okay, welcome back to the Dr. Money Matters podcast. My guest today is Dr. Cory Fawcett, a returning guest. He was on episode 5 way back when I first started, and we talked about financial topics for physicians who are starting out. And today I have him on, and we're going to talk a couple of things. First, Dr. Fawcett is a retired now general surgeon. At the time when we first talked, he was still working, I think, doing some locums or a part-time coverage, but now you're fully retired. Is that right, Dr. Fawcett?
That's right. In fact, February will be 3 years now that I've hung up my shingle and gave up my beeper.
Nice. Well, you look like, you're smiling, happy, and in good shape. So retired life must agree with you.
Retired life is different than I anticipated it would be, and I think it's better.
Right.
What I thought I'd get and what I got turns out to be a step above. Man, I should have done it earlier.
I
I
think
don't hear very many people that say, "Man, I wish I'd have retired later."
right, right.
I'm finding that out. It's pretty nice to do whatever you want, whenever you want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially going from the life of a general surgeon. Now you had transitioned, to part time, but I mean, the life of a general surgeon notoriously is a busy, busy work life. So definitely for
Yeah.
you.
As I look back, had I gone directly from a full-time general surgeon to retired, I don't know if I had have done well.
Hmm.
I think it worked out really nice for me to taper down my practice so that I went part-time. And then by the end, the last 7 months, I only worked 1 week a month for the
Right,
7 months. And
right,
so by then, it was really easy to let go.
right.
But from full-time to nothing, I don't know how I would have done with that.
That's true. I think it's good. It's good that you were practicing retirement. So,
Easing into this new life,
there you
yes.
go. There you go. So we talked before recording. You're actually traveling around the country, and you're in an RV. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now, my home is in Oregon. And just as we took off to come south to get out of the bad weather for the winter, a snowstorm came in and delayed our leave by 3 or 4 days because
Oh
we couldn't
wow.
get over the pass.
Oh boy.
So when that was done, we hightailed it out of there. And right now we're down in the Palm Springs area where
Nice.
it's in the 70s and sunny every day.
Yes.
And we're
Yeah.
going out hiking and playing pickleball and having a lot of fun. It's nice to live in an RV life. I've been living that way for about 30 years.
Oh
We
wow.
This is our third RV,
Okay.
and we've been the first time traveling around continuously
Okay.
started last year.
Okay.
Before that, I was still working, and so we would do a couple weeks here and there or weekends.
Right.
But now we're actually, last year we did an 11-week straight
Wow. Okay.
stint, and I don't know how long this one's going to be because I was supposed to go home to pack to go to China for an adventure there with some friends, and China has been closed.
Right.
So, I
Right.
mean, how often does a country hang up a closed sign? Hey, we're
It's
closed.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And hopefully this doesn't turn much worse. But yeah, it's a pretty terrible situation.
But
I just
that did give me a terrible problem to have, though. Now I don't know what to do in March.
right,
It's
right.
like I'm out in my motorhome and I got nothing scheduled. So,
Well, there's still lots of good places to see in this country. So I'm sure you've been to a lot of them, but there's always other places.
yep, we're just gonna wing it.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do that, right? You're retired. You can kind
I
of.
can.
There
We
you
did a
go.
vacation once like that while I was still working, and we called it 70 and sunny. And we took a month off. We took off south in the RV, and we just watched the weather, and we moved the RV to wherever it would be 70 and sunny.
Wow. Wow.
And
Nice.
that was a beautiful month. Hey, there's a
I,
storm coming. Let's move 6 hours over
right.
there. And there's no storm over here.
You must be like an expert driver then with the RV. That's the part that scares me. I don't know how you guys drive those things.
They drive just like a car. I mean, it's not really that big a deal.
Right. Right.
It's parking that might
Well,
be,
yeah, there you
you
go.
know,
That's true. That's
a
true.
little different. But my wife gets outside with a walkie-talkie spotting for me
Ah,
when we're
okay.
parking, so she can look at the blind spots
Okay.
and get me into the right spot.
Well, there's rumor that Elon Musk's new Cybertruck is, or some people are going to turn that new semi into a huge RV. But not that I'm looking at that anytime soon. But that we'll have more cameras and things like that. I don't know. But
Well, I don't know about that because RVs are battery intensive.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so if you use it for the motor and you need it for your refrigerator and all the lights and
right, right.
we'll see how a Tesla RV would work.
That's true. That is true. So good. Well, let me get to the meat of the podcast here. You've written a series of books for healthcare professionals, and your latest one is about real estate investing. And so, and when I met you in DC for FinCon, we talked a little bit about real estate investing. And so, you had mentioned that you own properties in Oregon.
Yes.
And so I wanted to kind of talk to you about it because it's a topic that a lot of physicians want to learn more about. We hear about real estate investing. We hear about the different things that you can do, whether it's traditional avenues like purchasing a single family home, purchasing multifamily, investing in real estate syndicates, buying REITs, crowdfunding. There's endless options out there. So tell me what you did.
My concentration is small apartments.
Okay.
So I own right now 4 apartment complexes from 4 units up to 31 units.
Okay.
And my very first purchase, my foray into real estate, was a 31 unit complex that I bought with no money down and got cash back at closing.
Okay, now you sound
That
like a
was
real
my
estate commercial.
yeah,
So
it does.
let's let's dig into that. How did
And,
you do that?
in fact, you said it sounds like a real estate commercial. That's how come this book came about, was when I would say something like that, or I would say, well, I'm a general surgeon. I have 64 rentals and I manage them myself. And people would say, how could you possibly do that? And I kept having to, well, this is what I did. This is how I did it. And so it came up so many times. How could you do that? Like, people would be amazed that it's possible. They all think real estate is a full-time job, which it is not.
Right.
And so I decided, there's enough demand here. I should put a book out about how I did this.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is. It's really just a how-to advice on how to do real estate successfully. The book itself doesn't sell anything else. It's just trying to show you how I did that, because I kept getting that question asked all the time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
one of the things that I think, you mentioned there's lots of different ways about real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I only like the one. You own it yourself.
Okay.
Because any of the other ones means you're throwing somebody in there who's making money off of you. Because they put the thing together. You think about a syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
They are putting that together so that they can make a profit.
Right.
That profit comes out of the profit you should have gotten from owning the real estate.
Right.
It goes to them. And then in a few years, they sell the darn thing because they're in control of it.
Right.
When they want money, then they'll sell it. And then suddenly you got a bunch of money dumped back in your lap and you got to reinvest it again somewhere. But me, when I buy a piece of property, I buy one that I'm going to keep forever. I never will have to reinvest that money again. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to work for me for the rest of my life. And I was on a panel recently where they discussed active versus passive real estate.
Right.
And they said that, a syndicate, for example, is a passive.
Right.
And owning it yourself is active. And yet the person who was putting on the conference, I saw him write that he evaluates 50 syndications a month to find 2 or 3 of them that he might consider investing in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you extrapolate that out, that means he looks at 600 of these investments a year.
Right.
That doesn't sound very passive.
That's a good point.
When I'm buying small apartment complexes, they're not like houses. There's not lots of them out there.
Right.
I told my realtor, this is what I want. Tell me when you find one. And I would only look at 2 or 3 deals a year to pick one.
Right.
So which one of us is active and which one of us is passive?
But then the counter to that would be, okay, but and I agree with you, but the counter to that would be, well, but then you get called if there's issues.
Why would you get called?
That's a common question.
My wife and I spent this summer hiking across Spain with our telephones on airplane mode. And my real estate money kept going in the bank. Right. Now, it doesn't get any more passive than that.
That's pretty true.
And I am the owner of these properties.
Right.
But they don't call me.
Right.
When there's something wrong.
They
used to.
Yeah.
They used to, because there was at a time when I was a full-time general surgeon, I had enough time to manage the property. Wow. Now that I'm retired, I don't have time to do that.
That's exactly the
Um,
opposite.
yes, it was. I thought that when I would retire, I would take back more of those responsibilities and do them myself.
Right.
Because what happened originally was for the first year, my wife and I did everything there was to do just so that we would learn about the real estate.
Mhm.
What does it take?
Right.
When somebody moves out, what is involved in that turnover? We did everything. All the
Right.
painting, the spackling, the fixing, the plumbing, the electrical, we did everything for 1 year. And then at the end of that year, we had a good handle of what was going on. And then we started hiring the people to take care of everything.
Mhm.
But I retained the position of manager.
Okay.
Okay. So they still didn't call me because we had a maintenance guy.
Right.
If something was broke, you call the maintenance guy.
Mhm.
If he's having some big issue and needs to talk, then he might call me.
Right.
Everything got automated so that I just wasn't involved. And so I could take as many of those roles as I wanted.
Mhm.
But when I retired, we started traveling. And I can't be the manager
Right.
from Spain
Right. Right.
with my phone
Absolutely.
on airplane mode.
Right.
So we actually had to hire management when I retired because we weren't around to be the manager.
Okay.
And so when I managed the properties myself, that took about 10 to 15 hours a month of my
Come on.
time.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
could have taken less
Right.
because I did retain a few things for me to do.
Mhm.
But it could have been less. And I tell physicians, if you think that real estate is really, they say exactly what you said. Well, I don't have time to take those phone calls. Well, I ask them this. Okay, you have a doctor's office, don't you? Well, yeah. Great. When somebody comes through the door, do you give them the paperwork to fill out? Well, no, I don't. Okay. Well, when they go to a room, do you put them in the room and take their blood pressure? Well,
Right.
no, we don't. Okay. If you book them for surgery, are you calling the OR and setting that all up and getting the insurance lined up? Pre-authorization, you doing all that? No. When they call back with questions, are you answering the phone? Well, no. Well, what do you do? Don't you
Right.
do anything at that place?
Right.
And so running your real estate, you should run it just like your office. There are things in that office that only you can do.
Right.
Everything else is done by somebody else. You don't do it. And I'm pretty sure if the toilet had a problem, they wouldn't be coming to you to fix it.
Right. Right.
And the same thing happens with the real estate. Just because you own the real estate doesn't mean you have to fix the toilet.
Right. Right.
You're the owner. Trump. Trump owns
Right.
a whole bunch of properties.
Right.
I bet
Right.
he doesn't fix any toilets.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
It just doesn't happen that way.
Right.
Um, you can make it happen that way. And I've never understood why people thought they needed to.
Right.
But everybody thinks that's the way it works. And that's just not the case. Let me give you an example. When I was the manager,
Mm-hmm.
I automated something like, let's say, a stove.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's stove quits working. Okay. Here's my involvement. First, they contact the maintenance guy. He comes over and checks that, make sure it's not a breaker or something. He just checks to make sure that the stove really is broken.
Mm-hmm.
He makes a phone call to the appliance people who have an appliance already picked out that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
And they come and check it out, and they have instructions: fix or replace. They check it out. If it's something that's easily fixable, they fix it. If
Okay.
it's not easily fixable, they replace it with the one that's already picked out. They bring it in, install it, haul the old one away. They already have my credit card on file. They charge my credit card and they mail me the receipt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time I'm actually involved in that entire process is when I open the mail and find a receipt. Oh, they replaced their stove.
Right.
And, and I need to record that. In fact,
Yeah.
my wife does that. She
Right.
records it. So
Okay.
that's my whole involvement. If somebody's stove goes out, is to file the receipt.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. I mean, you kind of break it down there in a way that, I think is simple to understand, because you're right. I think that's the basic fear that most people, working professionals have, is like, I'm already so busy. I don't want to, have more, headaches. But you're basically saying this is, you treat it like a business, you set it up like an office, and then you just kind of, handle it the way you would where you're working. You don't handle everything. You automate as much as you can. You delegate what what you can, and then you handle the big issues. But if you're not handling every little thing, it shouldn't be as big of a, it shouldn't be a headache then. So
Yeah, and most people just don't get the concept that those other people are doing that job for free.
right.
So I could, and they do this to save money.
Hmm.
I'm going to run down and pick out a stove. I'm going to buy it at some cheap place where it's on sale. I'm going to haul it over. I'm going to take the old stove to the dump because I'm going to save money. But the reality is that the appliance store will install it for free if you'll buy them from them.
Right.
And
Right.
so, are you saving money? When you hire somebody to do those jobs, how is that different than paying the syndicate to do those jobs for you?
Right.
Because either way, someone else is going to do the job.
Right.
The question is, you're going to give them a cut of the profits, or do you get all the profits?
No, that's actually a great point, because yeah, the people who are running the syndicate are not doing that. I mean, they're, in a 100 unit, 200 unit apartment building, guaranteed. Those aren't the people that are doing it. They're hiring professional management, but now you're adding multiple, middle people
Yeah,
into that.
you can get rid of that middleman because he's not doing really anything.
Right.
He'll tell you he's doing lots of stuff,
Well, send you a
but
nice email.
you know,
um,
but you don't need that.
right.
You can easily do it. If somebody read my book, there's enough information right there that you could easily go out, buy a property, run it efficiently, and enjoy the process without feeling like it's eating you up.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You said you started out with a 31 unit building, and now you've got four buildings?
Yes, I had a
Okay.
fifth one, but it sold about a year ago. We had that one in a partnership that
Okay.
we tried to do, and that was supposed to be a short-term thing, and the term ended, and so I went from 5 to now. And now I've got 55 units out on
Okay.
those 4
Okay.
apartment buildings.
Are you currently looking at more real estate investing, or
No.
no?
My last real estate was bought right at the peak of the market before the market crashed in 2008.
Okay.
So I am actually the worst case scenario
Okay.
of how real estate turns out, and it turned out very lucrative for me in the worst case scenario because my last 2 pieces were bought just before the crash. But I would have been buying more and more and more
Hmm.
and more.
Okay.
But my wife said, "Why are you looking at another one? Don't we have enough real estate already to cover us for the rest of our lives?"
That's a good question.
And she had a good point. Uh,
Right.
why am I spending more time to try and earn more money that I don't need?
Right.
Because these already produce today, my real estate produces more cash flow than our expenses are in a year.
Oh,
And yet I
that's
still have all my retirement funds
right.
on top of that. And so, what if I had bought more and more and more? What
Yeah.
would I have done with all of the excess?
Right.
I would have to find something to do with give it away. I don't buy an airplane. I don't know what I would have
Right.
done, but she had a really good point. And when she made that point, we decided that we wouldn't buy any more until all of those were completely debt free.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when all of those mortgages were gone, we could consider another one. But the reality is now we're traveling all over the place, and these alone with some mortgages still make more money than we need. By the time the mortgages are paid off, that's even more money.
Right. Right.
I just can't imagine us needing to even bother going to buy some more. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to
No.
say enough sometime.
I think that's the hardest thing to do. So that's really good. That's good life advice right there, because I think, everyone's always chasing, 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 especially when you are in the medical field. You're always looking for the next achievement, next achievement. But at some point, you're there.
You got to say enough. At some
Yeah,
point, you got to stop saving all that money and start spending it. That's what I'm
absolutely.
doing now.
Absolutely. Good, good. So, this is a good point because you've covered some of the questions that I had in terms of syndication, and things like that. But you kind of said that you are, you're doing this and you haven't really even needed to touch your retirement accounts. And so that's one of the topics that comes up a little bit in these physician, social media groups, is using your retirement funds to invest in real estate, or maybe not contributing to your retirement funds or liquidating your 401k to do that. What do you say to that?
I would say never, 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 never liquidate your 401k to buy real estate. I think that's a really, really bad idea.
Okay.
The reason is, number one, you're just trying to sell one investment for one that you think is better.
Right.
Well, you already own that investment and it's already a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you liquidate your 401k, you're going to pay taxes and penalties at a time when you're probably at your highest tax rate.
Right.
And then you're going to try and reinvest it someplace else in a significantly lower amount.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a dumb idea
Right.
to
Good. Good.
liquidate your
Right.
401k.
Right. What about
Maybe
self-directing
reasonable,
it?
self-directed 401k.
Yeah.
I
Or
don't,
IRA.
if you feel like you can do it, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have done that.
Okay.
I didn't initially, when I very first started, the first thing we did was an IRA.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to get one. So I got help. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
After a few years, I didn't need any help anymore. And I haven't used anybody since. Um, but a better question might be, would you not put money into your
Right.
401k and
Yeah.
instead buy real
More real
estate?
estate. Yeah.
Um, I think that's also a bad idea.
Okay.
I think the 401k is one kind of an investment and real
Mm-hmm.
estate is another kind of investment. And you would be better to have your eggs in different baskets there,
Mm-hmm.
having two different kinds. You've got stock market and you've got the real estate business. Um, for me, the real estate grew way faster than the stocks grew.
Okay.
Um, but I've got both,
Right.
and if something happens to one of those industries, I've got the other one
Right.
as well. So what we did was we maxed out the 401k
Mm-hmm.
and our two IRAs,
Okay.
and then everything else we invested went into real estate.
Okay. Okay.
Um, there was a time where we stopped the IRAs.
Right.
They were non-deductible
Mm-hmm.
IRAs, so I had to pay after taxes,
Right.
and there was no backdoor Roth IRA available back then.
Right.
And we decided instead of putting that after-tax money into an IRA, we would put that after-tax money into paying off the mortgages on our real estate.
Makes sense.
And so at that time, those mortgage interests were around 8%. So I was getting a guaranteed 8% interest rate on
Right.
that money, which is a pretty darn good investment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there was a time we diverted our IRA money, but I never diverted the 401k. The 401k was always maxed out because it was so efficient.
Right.
It was pre-tax. And,
Absolutely.
and any of the money that you use to invest in real estate, it's going to have to be post-tax money. And I don't think I would bother to do that. Don't sell off your 401k money or short it.
Right.
Fill your 401k.
Right.
And you should have enough money. As a physician, if you live a decent lifestyle and don't go overboard,
Right.
you'll have plenty of money to do things you want to do and make investments.
Absolutely. I think that's good advice, and I think that's a good unbiased approach because you kind of hear real estate gurus, all they're very pro real estate, and that's fine. But I sometimes feel like they kind of give short shift to the 401k. It's a phenomenal thing if you have it, and there's no reason, like you said, that physicians can't do both. So
Yeah,
let me
I
ask you
did
this.
both. Yeah.
I was going to say, when you bought your buildings, and it's been a while. Do you still think that there's deals out there now? So some young general surgeon coming out now, who's been in practice 3-4 years, um, you know, are they going to be able to get those kind of deals that you did?
Yes. Real estate has been going up in value forever. And so you can ask that question every single decade forever. Oh, now it's up so high. It's highest than
Right,
it's ever been. Is now a good time to buy? Here's the thing. We already know you can't time the market,
right.
and that counts for real estate also. So every time somebody asks me, well, is now a good time to buy real estate because it's kind of high? I say, you think you're good enough to time the market? Because that's what you're asking me.
Right,
Should you time the market?
right.
So the answer is no, you should not time the market.
Correct.
It's always a good time to buy real estate. I have a whole chapter of that in the book. It's
Okay.
always a good time to buy real estate, because when you're buying real estate, what you're looking for is a property that will make a positive cash flow for you. And every property, if you paid for it in cash,
Hmm.
is a positive cash flow.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are always times, all the time, you can find a deal in real estate, and you don't need to get a killer bargain. The bargains in real estate, those are for flippers.
Hmm.
Those guys aren't real estate investors. A flipper is just a job.
Right.
You're going to
Right.
buy a cheap one, you're going to put some time into it, turn it over, sell it for more, and then go do another one. That's a job. You use that to earn a living and then move on to the next one. You're looking for bargains when you're doing that. Imagine my grandmother is where I learned about real estate.
Hmm.
She had a lot of single family homes, is what she did it in. But imagine that same conversation in, say, 1974,
Hmm.
when the house prices just jumped from an average of $20,000 to $30,000.
Hmm.
And they're saying, oh man, do you know how far it's up 50%? Now is
Right.
now a good time to buy real estate?
Right.
And you're wringing your hands about this decision.
Yep.
And then jump forward to today. If you had purchased that, and today it's worth $300,000 and it's been spinning off cash flow for all that time, would it really have mattered if you bought it for 20,000 or 30,000?
Right.
Would that
Right.
really make any difference in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
No.
good point. Yeah.
So when you're sitting there at the water cooler, what you're just trying to figure out is, will this be a positive cash flow? If I buy this, will it put money in my pocket every month? If it will, then do it.
Right.
And 30 years from now, you will have put so much money in your pocket and the thing will have gone up in value so far,
Right.
you won't care what kind of deal you got. So you don't need these killer deals. Every market has good deals and bad deals.
Right.
And your job is to find a good deal, a deal that will work for you. You can buy it. You can put money in your pocket. You don't have to lowball the guy who's selling it. If the deal's going to work, the deal's going to work.
Right.
And and the good times and high times and low times and fast times and slow times, um, really, it just changes the number of these that are available.
Hmm.
So if the market's really hot, there are fewer available. I remember I wanted to do a flip.
Okay.
I don't remember when this was, but my father and I, he had retired, and I had hired him to do some maintenance for me. And I thought, well, let's do a flip. I'll buy the place, you do the work, and then we'll sell it and split it.
Hmm.
And it happened to turn into a hot real estate market right then. And the market was so hot, I couldn't buy anything, because the realtor would call me and say, hey, here's one that's just what you want. I'd go look at it after work and I'd say, hey, yeah, that looks good. Let's put in an offer. We'd put in the offer. And the next morning there was already 7 offers ahead of us.
Oh, wow.
So there was no way for a working guy to buy real estate in a hot market, because there were so many people going after those deals,
Hmm.
um, that I just said, oh, let's forget it. And I'm not going to waste my time chasing stuff I can't get. And we
Right.
just waited. And pretty soon the market slows down. And now you have time to actually evaluate something, because there's not 7 people standing in line, and you can evaluate it, pick something that works, and buy it. You don't have to buy it now. Many people they ask me that question a lot. Oh, I got to get something right now. And I'm looking at this and looking at that. And I said, well, why did you need it right now?
Right.
I mean, don't you think there'll be real estate for sale next year? I mean, this one that you want to buy right now wasn't for sale 3 months ago, right? And so maybe there's an even better one coming next year. You
Right.
don't have to buy it right now. What you need to do is decide you're going to do this, start educating yourself, start looking, and pretty soon one pops up. I only bought one, I only own four.
Hmm.
You don't have to buy a bunch of this stuff to have your retirement taken care of. You, four
That,
times.
right. No,
And
I
then
think,
never do it again.
yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal because I think that is, you always hear about, okay, moving to the next deal. But that, what you described, you did it four times, you haven't bought one in years, and now you're living off the cash flow. And if, like you said, when the mortgage is paid off on those, you're going to have even more cash flow.
Yeah. And
So
I bought my first one 19 years ago.
19 years ago. Okay.
So in
Okay.
12 years,
Yeah.
there was enough cash flow for just from the real estate to retire me
Wow.
in
Wow.
12 years.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't have to buy a lot. Yeah, a lot of people are churning them. They say, "Oh yeah, I made my 600th deal," and I'm thinking,
Right.
man, don't you ever see your wife? Why are you out doing all these deals? Don't you got
Right.
enough yet?
Right.
When will you
Yeah.
have enough?
That's, yeah, that's there's an old joke about Kurt Vonnegut is at a party in New York, and they're at investment banker was there, and talking about his hundreds of millions of dollars, and then Vonnegut looks to his friend and he's like, but we have something he's never going to have, and this guy's like, what do you mean? He's almost a billionaire, and he's like, yeah, but we have enough. And so I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's good. So let me ask you this one more question about real estate. What would you wish you would have known earlier when and you started? I don't you started pretty early, but what would you wish you would have known when you started investing in real estate?
Um, I would say learning the concept of enough was important. Um, but if I had known originally that there is more than one way to finance a deal than just going to the bank and giving them 30% and they'll cover the rest. There are so many ways that you can finance a real estate deal, um, that it opens up incredible things. That's how I ended up buying. I think I bought, I'm not sure if all of them, almost all, I think all of them that I own, I bought 100% financed.
Hmm.
Um, no money down, cash back at closing.
Right.
And one of them I didn't. The partnership I did not do that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
But there are so many ways to finance and such flexibility in financing the deal that it opens up way more possibilities. I just was talking with somebody who said, I found this one. He showed me a picture of it. I'm trying to talk him down to an amount. The owner's going to carry the mortgage, and I'm trying to talk him down to a sales price that'll make it a positive cash flow. And they said, well, if the owner's going to carry the mortgage, maybe you don't need to change the sales price. Get him to give you a lower interest rate.
Right. Right.
If he gives you a lower interest rate, it has the same effect on your cash flow as if he gave you a lower price.
Right. And he gets the price.
And he
Exactly.
still gets the price he wants that way.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys they're so stuck on, I want that price. I'm not going down on the price.
Right.
They'll give a percent on interest. And that 1% less interest, if you take a 30-year mortgage, is going to be incredible. And so
Okay.
if you think about that, if you go to a bank, for instance, they're never going to give you a 30-year
No.
mortgage on this. They're
No.
going to give you a 10-year balloon,
Right. Right.
but the seller will give you a real 30-year mortgage.
That's true.
What value does that have? That in
Yeah.
10 years from now, you don't have to refinance and pay all those fees again,
Right.
to do that. And so I have some seller carry that, one of the deals was 35 years.
Wow.
And when I sold the property, I became the carrier of the note. And so if they don't ever make an extra payment, the note will probably outlive me. It's a
Right. Right.
35-year mortgage. And
Wow.
I'm probably not going to be here in 35 years.
Oh man. No, I mean, if you stay retired, keep active, you probably will be. But so let me ask you this: in terms of, you talked about how the real estate is providing you with the cash flow. So let's go over this because this is one of the other things that people want to know about. You were a surgeon in practice. How long did you practice?
23 years.
23 years. Okay.
At 20 years, I gave up my private practice, and I
Right.
spent the last 3 years doing locums and part-time work and
Okay.
tapering down.
Okay. And you wrote in your books, about the process. You paid down your debt, and you were pretty financially savvy earlier than I would say the vast majority of physicians become, aware of finances. But so let's talk about this, because, like I said, the numbers are what people kind of want to know, and you've talked about this. So when you when you were working, what would you say your highest year of income as a surgeon was?
About, I think it was $256,000.
$256,000, and that you would have
And
been in like your peak busiest year.
that would, yeah, it wasn't so much my peak busiest year as more the best negotiated year.
Ah, fair. Right,
Because
right, right,
the insurance companies kept
right,
changing things, and
right.
so I lived in a town that was fairly depressed.
Hmm.
The Spotted Owl closed down logging in Oregon.
Right.
And well, actually it wasn't the Spotted Owl, it was some environmental terrorists that created the Spotted Owl as their excuse, but they closed down the logging, and
Mhm.
so that was a big industry where I lived.
Okay.
So there was a lot of people that didn't have insurance, so reimbursements were low, and I took about 9 to 12 weeks of vacation a year.
Okay.
And I was in private practice, so you don't work, you don't eat.
Right. Right.
I sacrificed a lot of income for that. So my highest W-2 out of the practice was about 256. I started at 100.
Oh, wow.
My
Okay.
contract when I
Right.
first got my job right out of residency was for $100,000 a year.
Right. Okay. Wow. And so, and
Residents almost get that now.
it's not too far off. It's not too far off, especially the ones who are moonlighting. So now, uh, what would you say your net worth is now?
About 7.5 million.
Wow. Okay. So that's something that's really difficult for people to to kind of wrap their heads around. You as a surgeon, 256 was your highest year, and it's not like you worked 50 years. You worked 23 years post residency, post fellowship. Um, so just by obviously compound interest has a magic way of working, but it doesn't usually kick into that level until 30 to 40 years of compounding. So it's I just want people to know that this is achievable. You used real estate, you used your 401k, you used those things, and now your net worth. I mean, you're writing, you're doing those type of things. But how much do you think it's related to your real estate, and how much do you think it's related to your actual income as a surgeon?
Um, well, let me give you this number that
Okay.
most people don't talk about.
Okay.
I sat down when I retired from my practice
Mm-hmm.
it was at 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
At 20 years, I had earned $4 million.
Okay.
My W-2s, I added them all up, and I had averaged right at $200,000 a year, just a
Right.
tad under that, but $200,000
Right.
a year. I had earned $4 million, and
Mm-hmm.
I retired from my practice with a net worth of $5 million. My
Yeah.
net worth was higher than my total earnings throughout my life.
Right.
Most people probably would retire or would have at that point, they earn 4 million and they might be lucky to have 1 million.
Yep.
But the thing that was different about us, I was really lucky to have a frugal wife.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a decision early on. We got married in our internship when they paid. I remember my first year of internship, I got $21,000 was my salary.
Wow.
And she was making about that when she got her job. And we decided we would live on half of our income
Mm-hmm.
and we would save the other half. That is what I think the key is to the wealth I have generated,
Right.
is that we have invested 50% of my income all through our life.
Right.
We never hit any home runs. I didn't buy Microsoft when it was low. I mean, I just
Right.
made singles and doubles
Right.
all through the career, just regular investing. I made some big mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I made one investment mistake that had I not done that, I would have another million in
Right.
my net worth. And not in my net worth, in my portfolio. I'd have
Right.
another million in my portfolio if I hadn't
Right.
made that mistake. Um, So, I didn't do anything phenomenal,
Hmm.
but I think the biggest factor was that my savings rate was close to 50%.
Yeah.
And so that's why the compound interest works really well, is because most of the heavy lifting was done by me,
Right.
not the compound interest.
Right.
And then the compound interest took off. And it was nice that the real estate produces money that's tax efficient.
Yes. Yes.
So it was many years before I got taxed on any of that real estate cash flow.
Right. Right.
And today, about half of my real estate cash flow is taxable.
Okay.
The
Okay.
rest of it's tax free.
Right. Right.
So that's another big advantage.
Yes.
So I didn't move. I kept the one house, one job, one spouse rule.
Hmm.
I wasn't moving around.
Right.
I didn't keep every time you change jobs, that costs you a lot of money.
Hmm.
In my first book, Starting Your Practice Right, I showed the costs of one of my friends. It cost him $175,000 to swap jobs. That's a pretty big hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's say you didn't put that in your retirement plan. That's a pretty big hit 30 years later.
Absolutely.
So invest early, invest a lot, and at the other end, you will be really comfortable. I'm pretty comfortable today.
I can see that. I think that's great. I think it's good to see success stories because I think sometimes people coming out get so bogged down, and it is overwhelming. A lot of them have really high loans. They hear a lot of negatives about reimbursements, about future competition in healthcare, and so they're really negative. But doctors have always faced challenges. They're different challenges. You just described, your practice was by no means were you the highest earning surgeon that we've talked to, and yet you were still able to build a tremendous amount of wealth by making good decisions. You were able to save a lot, and doctors today, I mean, they're going to come out, they're still making good money. By 98% of the population, they're you're making really good money, and no matter what field you're in, and the specialists are making incredible money. So um, there's
I do
opportunities.
I do a lot of one-on-one counseling to
Hmm.
help people. I do a financial makeover program,
Okay.
and the thing is almost always the doctor who's coming to me for help, their starting salary out of residency was higher than my best year ever.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
and they're all worried about their student loans. I got out of medical school, I got out of residency, and I had about a $5,000 of debt.
Hmm.
Okay, but within 3 years of my job starting, I was over $500,000 in debt, and we decided to get rid of that. So
Right.
it took us about 6 years to become debt free. So I ended up also with a tremendous amount of debt. It
Right.
didn't happen to be student loans. It happened to
Right.
be other things that it's funny when you start earning money, people come out of the woodwork to loan you money,
Yes, that's true. That's
and they're
true.
not doing you a favor.
No, and we talked about that in the first interview we had about paying down mortgage. I at the time had kind of disagreed a little bit with you based on interest rates. I'm coming around to your way of thinking now, because the tax deduction, whatever utility it was before, is really not there for most people now anyway. The standard deduction is there, and the peace of mind is something I think as you get further along, you that is worth more than the 1%, 2% gain that you may have by investing, and that's of course a big maybe. So
Yeah. I had one guy who came early on in my helping doctors phase, who wanted me to look over his investments and see if he could retire. His plan was to retire in 5 years.
mhm.
I looked over everything, and sure enough, yeah, you could retire in 5 years. But do you realize that if you took the money you got in this account right here and you paid off your house, you could retire now? You're only going to work for the next 5 years so that you'll have enough money invested that it'll generate enough money to make your house payment. So you
Right.
can keep your house payment throughout your retirement years. If you get rid of the house payment, you're ready now.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's the effectiveness of not having that debt.
Right.
It's not just the peace of mind. I mean, for college, people ask me, how did you save for college? Because my kids all got out of college debt free.
Hmm.
I saved nothing for kids' college. I paid off my house.
Right.
The
There you
mortgage
go.
payment I used to make was
Hmm.
enough money to cover college costs.
Right. Right.
So you didn't
That's
need to save the money in special accounts for college. You just pay your house off. And then
yeah.
you can use that money that you used to make house payments with to cover college.
Right. That's
There's just so many advantages of getting your house paid off.
right. Right. I
And
think.
never use your house as leverage to buy a real estate investment
Oh, that's
either.
good. That's good. Yes, that's a very good point.
Um,
I think a lot of people learned that lesson in the
in
recession.
2008,
Yeah. So
when not only did they lose their real estate investment, but now they lost their house too, because they
yes.
borrowed money against their home. Your
Yeah.
home is not a piggy bank.
Right.
Your home is not an investment. Your
Right.
home is a part of your expenses, and
Yep.
you want those low. And
Yes.
you borrow money against your house to make some hot investment, you are just asking for trouble,
Yeah.
because it'll
I
come along.
I think so. I think what you're describing, these are really good fundamental pieces of advice. We all need to know these things, and I encourage my listeners and viewers now to check out your books, your series of books. They've all. I haven't read the latest one, but the other ones have been very good, and they're really well written and concise, and really just get down to the issues. So. Tell my listeners, you changed your website URL recently, so tell my listeners where they can find you
They can find me at financialsuccessmd.com.
now. Okay,
And you can find that name, Financial Success MD, all over the place: Twitter,
perfect.
Pinterest, and Instagram, and wherever you want to look. That's the name to look, Financial Success MD. It just was a couple days ago that happened. We swapped
Awesome.
over to that one. I had a longer name, Prescription for Financial Success, but it just seemed too long, so we
Right.
shortened it all down to Financial Success MD.
Awesome. Awesome. And what are you working on now?
Um, right now, the editor is working on my fifth book.
Hmm.
That book is in their hands. It's already been written.
Okay.
They're doing their first round of edits on it, so it'll
Okay.
come out probably by summer.
Okay.
And we're already outlining the sixth book.
Wow.
Um, so that, in amongst all my traveling, is what my life is like. And we're building a house.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah, when with all the traveling, we've decided we want to downsize our house.
Hmm.
I have a house with 2 fish ponds and 4 waterfalls, and it's when we leave to go on one of these trips, we have to
Right.
find somebody to take care of our place.
Right.
And so
Right.
we've decided we're going to downsize and get a place that I can just walk out, turn the key, and not worry about it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're going to actually custom build a house, and I'm going to spend some of this money that
There you
actually the
go.
house will cost less money than the old one.
Right. Right.
But I've always wanted a grand piano,
Okay.
and I'm going to get one.
Nice. Nice.
It's time. I
There
have
you go.
enough, so now I can just do that stuff.
There you go. Awesome. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. And, I want to encourage, like I said, my listeners to check out your website, your books, and just, really good advice from you. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It was fun to talk to you.
You too. Let me hit this stop here.